Well, here we are, mate. I'm a special guest on the Timothy and Rinny show. Was it the Tim and Rinny show? What do we call it?
Yeah, Tim and, well, yeah, if my parents are listening, it's a Timothy and Rinny show.
I've always got Babs, your mum, in my mind going, do not call him T.O. or Tim. His name is Timothy.
Don't you know it's Timothy? Well, I appreciate you being here, Greg. The tables have turned.
I know, mate. Well,
no Greg Bennett show today.
No, it's not
but
the
you're
Greg
still
Bennett
hosting.
show. I'm still hosting. I'm still in a role that I feel comfortable just firing hard questions at people. So, mate, but we had to catch up.
Yep.
We had to make this happen because it's been quite a year, mate.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And I just wanted to do a deeper dive and kind of fill in the details and the path forward with everybody. And I figured there's no better way to do that than just chatting with, one of my best mates. So
yeah, well,
I really appreciate it.
I think we can have fun with this because let's step back then. Let's get right into it because, mate, Challenge Miami. I was actually down there announcing.
Yep.
We had coffee the day before. We hung out. It was actually really great to catch up after a COVID year. We actually got to catch up and everything. But then you're going to have to just take me through that day and what happened. And actually, even before we do that, had there been anything that had indicated that on that day you would have a heart attack?
So it was almost like all of 2020, I was almost having issues. So we went to Australia, riding high off of Kona 2019, right? Went to Australia, had a great little training block. We did a little earlier than we normally do, and because we wanted to do Christmas with Rinny's family. We came back beginning of February, and COVID, being over in Australia, COVID was on the radar for us earlier than I think people over here in the U.S. just because the proximity to China and the news cycle is different over there. So I started getting kind of like shortness of breath and some heart palpitations, particularly while swimming, and it was really weird. And part of me thought, because Rinny and I had gotten sick after we got back from that trip, and I remember being in the coming through customs on our way back, and we were in maybe San Francisco, one of the West Coast airports, and there's a lot of travel coming from Asia, and there was just people hacking all over the place.
Oh man!
And Rinny and I just looked at each other like, is this term super spreader wasn't a thing yet, but we were like, oh my God, this probably is not a good place to be in right now. But so, easy recovery, got better. But then I started wondering, is this like a long COVID? And then I started to wonder, okay, anxiety is a real big issue right now with all the stress of the unknown of this new virus that's kind of, throwing the whole world upside down. And, you run around, you're training with mask on and things like that. It's super stressful. So I had all these other things that I'm like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. Long story short, went to a cardiologist here in Boulder. This is like the end of 2020. Mm-hmm. I did a stress test, did an echocardiogram. Everything looked pretty good. I did a calcium scan score, and I did have calcified plaque in my LAD. Not a lot, but I guess that was a little foreshadowing that somehow got overlooked, I guess, for the severity of it, maybe. Where there's calcified plaque, there's soft plaque. And so it didn't come out of nowhere, that's for sure. But triathletes, we compensate, like that's what we're good at, right?
Yeah, and we're also trying to figure out the whole time. It's like you said, have I just had COVID? I mean, were you ever tested? I mean,
I did. I had a test and it was negative. I did an antibody test.
Right. You did
negative.
Yeah.
And then I've had subsequent tests, but that was pretty early on. I mean, who knows how?
Yeah, but then you've got the anxiety because Rinny's pregnant.
Yep.
Right. I mean, COVID, lockdowns, and everything else. It's all kind of. So you're thinking maybe it is anxiety, right?
This was the start of our year, Greg. We had Finn come in January. Yeah. We were working without a nanny, so it was just the two of us. Neither of us have family in town. Yeah. February, our house floods, broken pipe, completely ripped up. The beautiful wine wall you may have seen on the Tim and Rinny show, completely gone. I had to tear the whole thing out. All the wood floors gone.
Not the
not the wine wall. Why?
The whole house can go, but leave the wine wall.
That was so much worse than a heart attack pulling that down.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, just chaos. And then I'm trying to get ready for Miami, and I had a crappy race in Daytona.
Yeah.
And I was kind of mad about that. it was pretty obvious now that the block was starting to inhibit the blood flow in my heart.
And so had you noticed it in certain workouts?
Yeah, well, like I said, we're really good at compensating, so I'm always just pushing through. But my numbers, particularly on the run, were not great, and I could tell definitely just feeling flat. When I'm trying to, when you can go there, but like you're like,
but then you don't know. You don't know if it's altitude, having a second kid with no help, flooding the house, all these other things. And you just go, look, the reason I can't get my run going is just because of all these things. You're not thinking, okay, I'm going to.
And then you're also like, okay, I'm 40 and I'm doing races a third of the distance that I've been doing. And So then you're just questioning if you're just not that good anymore. Hopefully I proved that wrong.
Well, I think, okay, so let's move on. You and I, like I said at the start of the show, we're having coffee day before. There's no indication there you were excited to race. I think we're both enjoying 48 hours away from the family just to decompress a little bit.
Good night's sleep, right?
and you were excited about racing. It was a star-studded field, no doubt. It was, and I do look at you as one of the greatest Ironman athletes in the world, and a very good 70.3 athlete in the world. But there's a lot of great, So it was kind of like, well, if you can get sort of right up in the mix there, it was on the card still.
I think I like to study fields and how races are going to unfold, and just with the field with Jan and Ben Canute. I can race well when there's good swim bikers.
That's true.
That's where I'm going to shine and step up. And it's been I've definitely my 70.3 results have definitely faded since 09, 10.
Yeah, but you're also breaking 8 hours at Kona. I mean, you've changed as an athlete.
I've changed as an athlete, but still when you get in those situations, I think you can really rally. If you're a racer, I'm not a trainer, I'm a racer, 100%.
I get it.
Then I get excited about those situations. So I was so pumped. And I mean, you saw it in the swim, right? I had that gap open. I think Rudy Von Berg lost the feet, opened a gap, and
you closed it.
Closed the gap.
I was announcing that. I was
like,
right
that's
there.
a race. Jan's up there. I'm going to be with him.
Yeah.
So I was excited just to be in that scenario.
So then, okay, let's step through the swim. Outstanding, coming out of the water. Ben Canute, Jan Frodeno, little group there away. Was there any indication, okay, is the heart's going to give me any issues today? When did it start sort of happening?
This is weird, but I had this off feeling before the race, like just kind of, I just knew, like, I was almost like had a little trepidation, and I didn't know why at the time. And you can go back and see the video, like, you can tell I was still having some issues breathing, and I was like trying to pull my ribs open, and just figured it was, I've had some issues before, like pulled obliques and stuff where, it causes lockdown. And you can watch it. I'm like trying to do everything I can to open up and feel
and
myself.
Then you're thinking, is it anxiety, just nerves?
Yeah. And so it was, and I think I said something to Ben Hoffman, who's, good friend of ours, before the race, like, having trouble breathing or whatever. And, but then you're like, all right, well, I'm a fighter. It's guns going off. Let's fight.
No more excuses. Let's go.
And then I actually felt great on the swim. And then I hit transition. It was just like the gong show. Jan can't get his suit on. Ben is like falling off his bike. And I'm just kind of laughing. I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Like, we're all swerving around. I'm like, that's what happens when you don't race for a year, I guess. I'm like, man, the best guys in the world.
Are very rusty right now. And so then, okay, but you got onto the bike and you're still in great place. Your mindset must have been, this is where I want to be. This is going to be a great day. And then what happened? I mean, the next steps.
I could tell I was strong. I was in solid shape. Julie Divins, Matt Boutrell had me in good shape for March.
Great coaches.
And it's been a long time since I've pushed. I used to push back in the day with Cliff. I'd be super fit in March, April, May. And so it's been a long time since I'd done that. But I could tell I was forcing it. Like, I just didn't feel in a good rhythm, didn't feel comfortable. So it was just really just trying to fit a, square peg into a round hole type of situation.
And that was from the outset on the bike?
That was from the outset, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was because you did sort of drop off pace a little bit on the bike. And was that because of that? It just, you couldn't find that rhythm?
Yeah, so, I was hanging, I think Jan was in the front. I was right behind him at that start. And then, Starkey comes along and starts pushing the pace. And I felt good, and I felt like I should have been able to kind of hang in with what Jan was doing, but I couldn't. So I just kind of brushed it off. It was like, okay, I'm not that fit right now. So I hung out. I kind of fell back a little bit with Rudy and Ben Canute. Also, great riders. So I'm like, this really isn't a horrible position, right?
It's not like you're going back with the fluff. There's still some legit firepower there.
Yeah. And it was probably 2/3 through that I started, like, I distinctly remember just feeling all of a sudden this chest pain kind of spreading out through my chest.
Wow.
And then this shooting left arm pain.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden my jaw started to get really
So was it pain or was it numb in the arm?
No, it kind of felt like a shooting feeling down the arm. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Wow.
And I knew something was off. I'm like, okay, I've been in a lot of races. This is not a normal, you're just pushing too hard type of feeling. That being said, I'm decided to keep going.
Yeah, I know that was kind of my next question for you. It's like this mindset when you can tell something's really off.
Yeah.
Like this is not a normal experience, because usually the anxiety and all the stuff in the world disappears when you're in a race. You're like, this is where I'm meant to be. I know this, but then this
I hate pulling out of races, Greg.
So that was it.
I hate it. 2011, my first Kona, I pulled out of that race. I was overconfident. I was overtrained. I was underweight. Got sick. I remember Julie Dibbins passing me on the bike going up to Javi, and she kind of turned around to joke something to me. She saw I was just covered in vomit. and I pulled out of the race, and I just felt so horrible. So I kind of vowed to myself, unless it's really a life-threatening emergency.
That's quite a vow. That's quite a vow.
It's a life-threatening emergency, and I guess that doesn't even count. But
so heart attacks aren't part of a life.
Yeah, and so you saw like Kona in 14 and Kona in 17, horrible races. But in 14, I was walking on my way up Palani out of town. So I'm at 10 miles. I'm walking.
Mate, everybody's got a story at Kona. Right? I can talk about my experiences all day, right? Well,
when you race the first 40K like an Olympic, Greg.
just for the camera. Just for the camera. But then, mate, so you decide to not pull out. There was a side note to this. I remember I was in transition 2.
Yep.
Lap to go. So everyone's got one lap to go except for you. You actually do pull in early and go to hop off the bike. Was it really like it was actually affected your mindset?
I think,
because you came bursting in, go to rack your bike, and everyone's like, mate, you got one more lap.
I'm like, surely we're done. Yeah. I think I was just trying to get off the bike because I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when that moment hit, I thought to myself, there's no way this is a heart attack. I thought it was a heart attack.
So you actually thought, did think it was a heart attack?
I remember this vividly. I'm like, could this be a heart attack? No, there's no way I'd be pushing these watts. It's still right behind Rudy, podium guy at 70.3 worlds, right? Like, you're still right in the race.
That's
and I think I was sitting in maybe 4th.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable. Yeah. Think about it.
So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just back off a little bit. And I backed off a little bit and still hanging around, like right around with Ben in 4th, 5th position. And then I just started to feel really bad. And I had trouble making some of the turns. So Miami's super technical course. We did the road course on the track.
Yeah.
And I was like clipping my pedal on turns. All of a sudden, I just couldn't figure out my lines. And I just started yelling. Every time I saw somebody I knew, Kenny or whoever it was, I just started asking, what lap am I on? I was just like, I got to get off this bike. And that's when, I pulled in a lap early. I saw the women's bikes racked. I'm like, oh, there's bikes there. I'll go in.
Completely different race, by the way. They were racing later, I think, or whatever.
Oh, yeah, they're already done.
They're already done. That's right. They're already done. But they're done, so maybe I can.
Yeah.
That means that with that heart attack that happened during the race on the bike, you're still performing at an elite level, which is unbelievable. But then the way the brain then just started to, it sounds like to me you almost started to go into a bit of a dreamland.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, you do that sometimes.
There have been times. I remember one time we were on a long ride, and you felt my head on your shoulder.
You fell asleep on me.
You're like, T.O.,
T.O., wake up.
Me up. I'm like, what?
Oh,
I just fell asleep.
I just had a little nap. Don't sleep and ride.
Do not sleep and ride, people.
But was it like that? Was it one of those where
I was just super loopy, and I think I was so much my energy was on like kind of that thought of something really is wrong and not really focusing on the race at hand. And I honestly think I was just in, it's like a Roomba when you hit the home button and it goes to its dock. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm pre-programmed. I'm going to finish this race, and then, you know, I must finish race.
So on the run, you get to the run where you're still having that same kind of chest pains?
Yeah, it just felt really like hard to breathe. Felt like I couldn't get my heart rate up.
Maybe more like an asthma attack? I don't know if you've had
absolutely,
that. But that kind of just constraint. Yep. But you still finished. What did you finish?
I finished 11th.
You still finished 11th.
I thought I was trying to get top 10. I'm like, I need a little cash, diaper money. You know, Finn was 8 weeks old. And I started running down this guy. I'm like, I'm coming for you. I caught him in the last lap. And went around him, and then he got on my shoulder, or he came around me into a headwind. I'm like, mistake. Where can you stop? Yeah, you take the headwind, I'm going to totally outsprint you. Well, we get to the little chute where you go left to the finish or straight. He had another lap to go. So I'm racing someone I didn't even realize it was a lap behind me.
Wow. But I mean, just in that self, I mean, without blowing too much smoke up your butt, but that is quite phenomenal that you can have a heart attack and still come 11th in what was a very star-studded field, because no one had raced and everyone was desperate for a race. I mean, does that surprise you? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I still wish I got in top 10.
Yeah.
So mad.
Is that where the money went? It
it
stopped
went
at 10?
to 10,
yeah. That's a shame. But
I joke with, all the guys, Matt Hansen, a good training partner of mine, gave him a hard time that, man, I had a heart attack. I still beat you to the finish line.
So what's going to take? I'm going to have to remove all my limbs.
Yeah, it's like, what's it, Monty Python?
It chops my arm off. I still got you. I know, that's extraordinary. But then the next things, because I saw you after the race, briefly, it was almost like you were in this unbelievably dehydrated state. When you see athletes and they're just like, just leave me alone. And you're like, okay, let's give him a sec to get a bit of water in. We'll chat a bit later. It was kind of that. Is that still what you thought? Was it maybe I'm just really dehydrated, or had it become clear in your mind once you crossed the line that, okay, this is serious?
It still wasn't clear. I think I kind of, because I was able to finish the race, put the heart attack thought out of my mind. Yeah. Because at that point, I'm like, there's definitely no way that just happened and I just finished this race. I mean, I even tried to do some like advertisement for a partner at the finish line. I'm just trying to keep on trucking on.
Yeah. It's business. It's business. Yeah. Do what I got to do. And I remember I got a note from you. Yeah, Greg, I'll see you at the post-race party tonight. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, I'll go because you were going. And generally, if you're going out, we're going to have a good time. Yeah. And so I guess I'm fast forwarding a little bit here. I get myself changed and ready to go to the party, and you pull up, and I think Kenny was driving the car. Yep. Were you driving the car, Kenny? You were, and you were in the passenger seat. And I came up and said, "Where are you going, mate? I'm here." And you said, "Oh, I'm going to hospital." And I'm like, "Oh, don't you never leave a man behind." Well, and I gave you a bit of a hard time.
I remember seeing us driving away. Yeah.
And I thought I'd get a bit of laughter, a bit of banter that normally we would, and your face was just, there was nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh man, this
is
actually." I felt like such a jerk. I felt like such a jerk, because I was, "Where you going, mate? Come on, let's have a good time." And then you kind of were like. And I was like, "Oh, that was bad. Maybe I should have been in the, I should have been a bit more supportive." And I felt terrible. But you then went to hospital. What was that next step like?
So it took me a while to get to the party. That's for sure. Yeah. Usually I'm one to like, all right, let's roll.
Yeah. And well, you're always late, but you would
that is
go
true.
to a party.
I was late to this interview. Blame it on the kids. So I was really struggling just to get to the party. Good friend of mine, Nathan Stuhlmacher, who was on the Naval Academy tri team with me. He's been to almost all the Konas with me. Great guy. He was there with his son Carter, and I went up to the bathroom. We were in like the kind of the NASCAR media center where the athletes had a ready room and things like that. And I went upstairs, started throwing up in the bathroom. Couldn't hold anything down, and Carter found me curled up on a couch because it's kind of like if you have your dog's on its last day, it just goes off into a field, doesn't want to be seen in that condition, and just does, says goodbye. I almost felt like that. And I was just curled up on this couch, just didn't want anybody to see me. And Carter went down and got Nathan. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I think T.O.'s in pretty rough shape, you know." So Nathan, came up and got me. And at that point, we were still all trying to rally and, joking like, "All right, let's go," And so I'm like, "All right, we'll keep going." And then I got to the party and I couldn't even stand up. And Belinda Granger, another good friend of ours, had me go into the to Bill's RV, the owner of the race, and she's like, "Just go lie down in there. There's nobody in there." And I text Rinny. I'm like, "I'm struggling," and so she like called me, talked like, "You got to call Dr. Dave Tusick, who's our primary care physician here in Boulder, Cloud Medical. Saved my life. Amazing guy. Highly recommend him if you're in Boulder." And Dave's like, "You got to go to the hospital, dude. Take some aspirin and get to the hospital." So Bill gave me a couple aspirin, and Bill's in, long career in the medical industry, so he's pretty familiar with a lot of stuff. And Kenny whipped the car around to get me there.
And then you got to hospital. Keep going, mate.
Oh, man. Yeah. So we get to the hospital, and I had to go to 2 hospitals. This first hospital was not great. It took me... we went to the ER like, "Oh, no, you got to go this way because there's this COVID protocol." And they had this massive white tent where they were doing COVID screenings. And Kenny had to go park the car. I couldn't even... I'm like, "I'm just going to sit here and you park the car and then we'll walk in." I just kind of rolled over in the grass and just vomiting in the grass. And Kenny had to pick me up and bring me through the screening. And it took me, I think, 90 minutes to get an IV. And all the meanwhile, there's this enzyme called troponin, which is an indicator of heart stress. I think it's actually is an enzyme that gets created when your heart muscle is literally dying. And it was through the roof. And still just hanging out there. And they gave me some pain medications. I was really, really struggling. And they I think we're trying to figure out what was going on, ran a bunch of tests, and decided that, okay, well, we think this might be a heart attack, so we have to send you to another hospital because we can't do that procedure. And I'm like, okay, that seems like a procedure you should be able to do.
Yeah, I would have thought heart attacks was something, yeah.
Yep. So they sent me to Jackson South, which is an amazing hospital.
Okay.
And world-renowned cardiology department. So I ended up very lucky because they sent me to an amazing place to go, and they saved my life. But this whole time I wasn't thinking that this was really a life-threatening thing until at one point at that first hospital, they brought in the ambulance team and their emergency resuscitation people, and they plopped down that big whatever they defib type machine. And I remember the lady coming in with that big machine, and she's like, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing okay." And she looks at me and says, "Well, you look like shit." I'm like,
lovely bedside manner.
Like, thanks a lot. And I did have one brief moment when it seemed like everything elevated to something that got a lot more important, a lot more time sensitive. And I thought that is the only part where I thought, am I going to die?
And on that, you're thinking, kids,
yeah,
Finn's 8 weeks old.
I put it out of my head very quickly. Honestly, I had that thought, and I said, "Nope, you don't think like that."
Did you get a chance to talk to Rinny or during that time?
No. Kenny was chatting with her. I think so, right, Kenny? Keeping her updated. And Dr. Dave, he talked to me. He's just like, "Listen, you're having a heart attack. They're going to take you to this other facility. They're amazing. They're going to perform this procedure. You're going to be absolutely fine, all right?" And I'm like, "Okay, good." And I think he told the same thing to Ren. Meanwhile, Kenny's out in the hallway, and they're making jokes about, "Oh, you hear people coming and I think maybe the ambulance driver's like, 'Oh, you here to do some chest compressions and stuff?'" They're ready for me to just, flatline. So I'm glad I didn't hear that either. But I think Kenny's like in the hallway, like, oh geez, and yeah, I was hoping, at that point Kenny was a, my kind of support team and I was hoping he could go with me, but not allowed to be in the ambulance, other hospital with COVID, weren't allowed anybody else. So I was just kind of on my own with my iPhone. So still had some connection to the world.
Still pretty scary. It's one thing if you're a loner, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But when you're a dad of two beautiful kids and Rinny, and then you never had a heart attack before, you don't know much about heart attacks, I'd assume, right? I mean...
Not much at all, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, on that, heart attack versus AFib versus enlarged hearts, I mean, we hear a lot of these things in the endurance sports world, but what is the difference between all of those?
Yeah, I think that's really important to talk about.
Yeah.
And so what happened to me, there's a lot of misconceptions that endurance sports create heart issues, and they very well may, but this is not my situation. You hear about enlarged hearts and AFib, and those are things associated with training, massive training loads. Mm-hmm. And actually, my heart is, it's not enlarged, it's fine. I didn't have an electrical issue. It was a soft plaque rupture. So just through my genes, I create plaque, and it's just a hereditary thing. I don't have high cholesterol. Obviously, I don't have high blood pressure. Obviously I'm in shape.
So in terms of nutrition, there's not a lot you can do or could have done or do differently?
I mean, a lot of people associate, and this is, in a lot of the medical world, it's kind of been proven now that cholesterol and, plaque buildup are not necessarily linked. And I think 80% of your cholesterol is produced in your liver anyway. So, a lot of cholesterol from foods is just kind of changes how your body creates cholesterol. Mm-hmm. So it's, it comes down to genes really. I mean, there's a ton of other factors for plaque buildup. But, in my case, diet, nutrition, training, not really factors into what happened to me.
Wow. And what are they doing now? Now that we're several months past, what's this experience? What have you been doing, and what can they be doing so this doesn't happen again?
I followed the medication regimen. There's a certain protocol that, they kind of have to provide you with when you have an incident like this. And, I've been following that, which includes statins, blood thinners, beta blockers, things that make you feel not great when you're training. That's for sure.
Is that right?
Yeah. But, I'm definitely digging in more to, okay, how do I mitigate plaque buildup? Because we know the problem now. And there's a lot of really advanced blood work stuff you can do now. Lipoprotein little a, I think, is one of the markers. The size of your LDL particles. So everybody talks about the composition of your cholesterol. So you have your total cholesterol, then you have your HDL, your LDL. HDL is considered the good, LDL is considered the bad. But no one talks about the size of the LDL particles too, which... I've seen so many specialists here in Boulder since I've gotten back, and, one of them equated small LDL particles to the analogy of a golf ball going through a tennis net. So if you have really small particles, they go through and start collecting inside the artery wall. Mm-hmm. So, I'm trying to address how do we look at those little details and figure that stuff out. And then, I'm absolutely always open to anything in terms of, nutrition and diet that might help that. But I'm going to do a lot of research into all that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because it doesn't sound to me like it has a lot to do with fatigue or overwork or overtraining that we often talk about. We overwork our hearts, as athletes, and we're pushing, and we're, this poor heart muscle is just getting absolutely smashed by it. It's not that at all. It's completely looking at the cholesterol side of things.
In my case, it definitely isn't. And I'm not saying, they're...
Oh, no,
that does happen for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the wall, there's two things. There's a plaque buildup, and then there's the wall gives out, right? So that's how the rupture happens. The plaque builds up inside the wall of the artery. When it ruptures, it fills up the artery where your blood's flowing and causes the blockage or causes a blood clot. And so the sheer stress, the effort I was putting out probably contributed to the failure of the actual wall of the artery, but it was going to fail at some point. I could have been gardening. I could have been laying in bed. So, I'm lucky, I guess, that
could have been doing anything in bed.
Could have been doing.
Could have been doing anything in bed.
Not with 2 kids, Greg.
No, that's true. You got to wait 20 more years for that. It'll be a remember when story.
Yeah, right. The good old days.
Mate, let's just shift gear a little bit. How has this sort of changed your perspective on life for a start, and then we'll move into more your career, but just your perspective on life. I mean, how is this?
Yeah, it's hard because you go through this and you have all this, it's an introspective type of situation, and you do some, exploring inside your own head, but then also life keeps going. Mm-hmm. And you just also, it's been a hard balance to try to really enjoy everything, but keep everything moving forward at the same time. We did take a week when I got back. I'm like, okay, we're going to go as a family, blow off the world. And we went to the beach and just had some family time. But, it comes at these weird moments where you realize how lucky you are. And, I love music. I love to dance, and, just dancing with Finn, mm-hmm. listening to music in the kitchen at the end of the night. And you just start to tear up.
Yeah.
You just realize you realize what was at stake, mm-hmm. and not only for me and missing out on the journey that my kids are going to have, but the thought of them doing it without me. Mm-hmm. So and I think it's just time. You have to learn, and the trepidation of training too, to be honest. Because it happened during racing, there's that automatic association in your mind that, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, which really isn't the case. I've done a lot of testing. Everything looks really good. But still, I'm like, I don't want to go out and run by myself or ride by myself right now. I just don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'll do a lot of my runs on the treadmill, and, I'll find whoever I can to ride with me. Mm-hmm. So I need riding partners.
Don't leave me alone.
Yeah, don't do
it. So, okay, on that, the career, your career, I mean, your last really big race.
Well, I want to bring one more point.
Go on.
When we're talking about training, and I don't think I realized how much it has impacted Rinny either. Just the other day, I was on the treadmill. Sorry.
Take your time.
Damn you, Greg Bennett.
The new Oprah Winfrey right here. No.
So I had thought nothing of it. Rinny was taking a nap with the kids. I'm like, okay, I got an hour run on the treadmill on the lever. And I've been running on the lever actually a ton, just because I can't get my heart rate up a lot. And
that's the one, the treadmill which you got to do the work kind of thing.
Yeah, it's supportive, body weight support.
Oh, body weight supportive.
Right,
okay,
right.
sorry. Yep.
When we talk about training, we talk about all that stuff.
Yeah.
I told her I was going to run it this time. She goes to bed. I get distracted. I'm doing 10 million other things. I start running late. So she gets up 2 hours later or whatever, 2.5 hours later, and she hears the TV blasting in the training room. And she thinks in her mind, she's like, oh, Tim was supposed to be done running 45 minutes ago. And then right in her mind pops something happened to him. So she comes running in. And I'm just running along, and she's just like,
Well, I think there's a post-traumatic stress going on, right?
Absolutely,
these women are incredible. The women that we have in our lives are incredible. Let's start there.
Much stronger than us.
Laura.
Much stronger than us.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
In
a lot of different ways.
You say that in jest, but
I don't.
They're emotionally, mentally,
they have to be,
and they're strong physically, but keeping the family together. And you make a really good point. Rinny, when she gets the phone call, 8-week-old baby.
Yeah.
Izzy, ball of energy, 3.5 years old, wants all the mummy's attention, and then, gets a phone call. I've had a heart attack.
No one expects it, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of the blue.
You're invincible. You're a professional athlete, right? Yeah.
With all the other things going on in the world, with COVID and everything going on, but it's something like this, it does make you think. I don't think Rinny's ever going to feel really comfortable now, And so now with your training going forward, knowing the impact that it has on Rinny, knowing that you have this correlation of what happened in the race, that how it might affect you in your training and racing going forward. What other things that you guys can do, being that you want to keep racing, what can you do to sort of help yourselves moving forward, I guess?
I think a lot of it's just time and building that confidence back up. I think when I'm able to get off some of these other meds and actually really feel myself, that'll be a much better indicator on, that I am okay, because I'll feel so much better when I am training. And I think that's a pretty good starting point. And, just to go back, we talked about the actual, details of the incident. Training and racing, in my situation, I truly believe saved my life. Now, when you have a blockage that big in your LAD, the survival rate at 40 is much, much less than the survival rate at 70. As you get older, you just think of it like as like the roots sprouting off. So as you get older, you get all these little like vessels that develop off your arteries, and those can help move blood around a blockage. They can help divert blood, keep you going. Through all these decades of training and racing, I've actually developed those earlier in my life. And, I've been told that those are a big factor in, keeping me going, keeping, the blood flow and keeping me alive.
Do you know what the statistics are for a 40-year-old with a heart attack?
Well, I've been told just overall is 12% survival for an LAD block.
12% survival?
Survival, yep.
Hang on, that's an 88% death.
Yep. Yeah.
Geez, so you're a 1 in 10.
I'm a lucky guy,
mate.
Greg.
Yeah.
But and then they tell you that it's harder to survive at 40 than 70. I'm like, okay, well, it's probably.
Oh, so if I get another one a few years older, I'll be fine. Yeah. I can survive them young. I'll be fine going on. I mean, have there been moments where you think, okay, I'll give away my career? I'm done. Kona Ironman 2019, what a way to go out. Has that crossed your mind, or is it no? There's still things I want to do, or?
Well, so when I was at the hospital, they performed the surgery. They actually went through my arm, did an angioplasty, cardiac catheter, maybe they call it, and go in there. They cleared the block, put a stent in, and then they did that, and the doctor immediately said, well, I guess it's time for you to find a new career. And I'm like, man, that's
a bit harsh.
Some
of these bedside manner people that you've said, there's medical people out there. Listen, this is bedside manner. I think we can do a little bit better here.
But then one of the nurses, the cardiac nurses, he had worked at Boulder Community Hospital, and he's like, starts chewing into the doc. He's like, oh no. He's like, hell no, you're totally wrong. I see guys like him in Boulder all the time.
Boulder, this is what we do here.
He's like, he'll be back on his bike in a month. And he's like, don't worry, kid. Don't listen to that guy.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, moving forward, I'll tell you right now, Greg, if all the specialists I've seen, if they all said, Tio, we suggest you stop doing this as a career, I would say, okay. I've had an amazing career. Even if I didn't have an amazing career, my family comes first, and I want to be there for my family. So 100%, I will not go back to racing without all the data that supports it.
Full green light.
Yep. And, of course, with the conversation with Rinny and, is this the best thing for our family? And we made a pact when we got married that whatever we do, it's always going to be focused on what's best for our family. And this holds true for the situation right now as well. That being said, I want to keep racing, and I plan on coming back. Absolutely. I've been very lucky to survive the incident, and then the echocardiograms, which kind of tell you the flow and how your heart's working. Everything looks great. The docs here said you're extremely lucky that your heart looks this good for the amount of trauma that happened during this event. They were shocked. So just making sure Kenny's all systems.
I haven't had a 5-minute warning yet. I feel like we've been going on, but
keep going.
No, but it's you're right, and I think you touched on a couple of things there. Firstly, you have had an outstanding career.
Thanks.
Well, I still think that 2019 Ironman Kona is the greatest performance outside of Jan Frodeno we've seen. Bastard. but no, seriously, I think, being the first American to go under 8 hours at Kona, the way you raced that, everything about it, coming in with broken foot and all of that, but still laying down the fastest run in your family now.
Finally. It took 10 years of Kona to do it.
But then, everything else you did before. But I think the other thing you touched on was your family unit. I think you guys are our closest sort of friends. And so when we heard it, we were like, it shook our world.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with PTSD on this whole thing. The thought of losing you as a friend and then, that would have been really awful for all of us, mate. So I do want you to make sure you get all the green lights going ahead. And that includes me. I want to be a part of that vote. When you talk to Rinny, I also want in.
I want you with a clipboard and like a little lab coat on. Be like, all right.
But I look, otherwise it'd be great if you can continue to race, because I do think, I think we've talked, I think you've got even more potential to show it if you want. You surround yourself with a great team and there's more there to give.
And that's it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But it's frustrating because, I've been racing Kona a long time. I felt like 18 and 19. I just started really figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited. And then, 2020 happened.
Well, when I had you
happen.
I had you on the show early, actually. You were one of my earliest guests on the Greg Bennett show. And
that was the beginning of 2020, right?
But we recorded, I think, even at the end of 2019.
We were in Australia. No, we were in Australia.
Yeah, you were in Australia on a training camp.
Yeah.
And so it was before COVID and everything. And we were talking about, what it's going to take, and you had a real plan in place of how you wanted to win Kona, and with your team and everything about it, it was like you left me with no doubt that the win was there, and it's just been this roller coaster couple of years, COVID, and then heart attacks, and
I think we're still on the big downhill of the roller coaster. Now we're starting to come up right now.
Oh, mate. Well, listen, thanks for letting me drop in and be a part of this with you and sharing all of that. I know it's still very emotional and close to your heart and everything. But
so just to give everybody a timeline, I'm hoping to run some final tests in either September or October and get the green light to go from there. And then, at that point, just look at 2022. Kona's kind of the end all be all, particular for me. So, I'll be missing that this year. I'll be there to, support some partners and just be a part of the event. But, if I'm not racing Kona this year, I think it makes sense to just keep the recovery process going on. Still training, pretty decent training schedule, just keeping everything, under control. Actually, I talked to Mark Allen a couple weeks ago, and, a former coach of mine, good friend. And I just was joking with him that, hey, I'm back on the Mark Allen program, heart rate under 150 for everything.
Yeah, nice, good. Yeah, the Maffetone system, right? Yeah. Good stuff, mate. Yeah. Well, keep us posted, huh?
Yeah, and just, moving forward, we want to make sure that we put this on everybody's radar. We all think we're invincible. We're amazing athletes. Even Greg, still.
Once upon a time, a long time ago now.
It's, as endurance athletes, we all think we're invincible. If you have family history, please go get it checked out. Talk to your family. I had family history I didn't know about just because it didn't seem like something we needed to talk about, but it really is. And then if you have any of the signs or symptoms, definitely go to your doctor and see the appropriate specialist. But if you feel like tightness in your chest, someone's sitting on your chest, if you have spreading chest pain, nausea, vomiting associated with any of this, those are all signs. And this is something I want to keep talking about. So if I can, help one person avoid the situation I did and stupidly do a triathlon while having a heart attack, I would love to do that.
It's a good place to stop, mate.
But it's a great story now. I didn't die and I finished.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, here we go. Let's do it again. No. Mate, this is awesome. Cheers. Thanks everybody.